this is just a map showing the origins of our scientific stuff. You see the dark green stuff, Germany, Austria, Italy, and Turkey. So these are the main resources for our researchers. But this maps, I think it clearly shows that this is a European enterprise, and I'm really happy to have this kind of internationality. The funding, I'm sure you will also be interested in how this research project is funded. So we have 3 columns in funding. So we get our basic funding from the Austrian Ministry of Science. Yeah? This is a basic funding for the house, the workmen, the infrastructure, and all this kind of thing. Yeah? The second column is external funds. This means, and this I have to explain here in Turkey because you have it in a minor scale here. It's similar to TÜBİTAK here. We also have to apply at research funds to get the money in Austria, in Europe, in the United States. So this is not the money you get basically every year, but you have to apply for it, and sometimes it's difficult to get it, you know, it's not easy to get it. So that's the second column. And the third column are private sponsors. Yeah? The foreign missions here in Turkey, they don't get money from the Turkish government, of course, but I have to add, so I don't know how much Turkish government is funding in Ephesus, but as I see, they did a lot of investment in the last years. As you know, these visitors paths, also the documentation in Ephesus, the fencing, and all these kind of things have been done by the Turkish government, which is not mentioned here. And if we come to the private sponsors, there are also 3 major private sponsors parts. The first one is the Ephesus Foundation. This is a Turkish foundation. It's based in Istanbul, and there are 3 holdings involved. Is Borusan Holding, is Eczacıbaşı, and Doç Holding. So these 3 holdings are involved in this. And this Ephesus Foundation Istanbul is focused on conservation. So they do our restoration and conservation project like Terrace House 2. Perhaps you have seen our workshop there with the wall painting restorers. This is funded by the Ephesus Foundation and also the Serapeum. The second one is the American Society of Ephesus, so this is the US. They are focused on the conservation and preservation of late antique and Christian monuments. So I have to apply the project, and I can't apply for a temple or something like this. So this is mainly focused on the Christian monuments, but as you know, we have a lot of them, so there's a lot to sponsor for the Americans in the future as well. And the third one is the Austrian Society of Ephesus, Gesellschaft der Freunde von Ephesus, and this society is focused on research. So they sponsor excavations, they sponsor surveys, but they don't invest in conservation and restoration. Yeah. So these are the 3 parts of private sponsorship in Ephesus. Just to show you how we work, because this is also a bit different to the Turkish system, our programs from the Austrian side, our research programs are limited always to 3 to 5 years. So we have to apply, and then we have to do it, and we have to finish it. Afterwards, we don't get the money for the same project. Yeah? And then we all have the international evaluation. This is in Europe. We get in Austria decided to do no national evaluation. We are a very small country. We know each other, and it was quite difficult to get a good evaluator. So they decided to make it internationally. And then we have a lot of cooperation partners. I have already talked about the excavation sites in Ephesus, and I forgot, I now see it, the Artemision. We started to work there again this year. And the other things I have already mentioned. Let's talk a little bit about our conservation and restoration work, because different things to do. The basic thing is consolidation. What do I mean with consolidation? Consolidation is, I think, the most important thing in an excavation like Ephesus, because this site has been excavated since 120 years. And of course the monuments are in a good condition, but the walls, the simple brick walls, stone walls, they are partly in a really bad condition. And so it's very, very important to do the basic consolidation with mortar to fix the walls and to keep it alive and to save it. The second thing is conservation. You know, we do the conservation of the wall paintings, for instance, in Terrace House 2 on the site, but also in the depot to do all the conservation of the findings from the excavations. And then the restoration, which means anastylosis and this kind of thing. And here we have a huge problem in Ephesus. And this problem are the old reconstructions. You know that especially in the 60s, 50s, 60s of the 20th century, a lot of buildings were partly reconstructed. Temple of Hadrian, Nymphaeum Traiani, Memmius Monument, I can go on until up to the Celsus Library. And we know now, after 50 years, that some of the materials which have been used for the anastylosis in the 50s, in the 60s, they are not suitable for the weather condition. And so we have now to do a condition analysis and damage assessment. This means that we really work on each monument. We look at the reconstruction, at the anastylosis. Is it damaged? Why is it damaged? Where? To get this kind of analysis, and then we start to do restoration projects of the restorations. Yeah? And we did it for the Temple of Hadrian this year, and perhaps you have seen the result. It's finished, but I was really scared because we had to remove the temple, and you know what this means to remove this kind of temple in the city center of Ephesus. But you see on the right side the damages is because of the heavy rainfall, the high range of temperature, cold winters, hot summers, and the exposure of marble, especially reliefs, to the weather, because all these anastylosis, one thing is missing, and this other is the roof. In the ancient times, all these monuments had roofs to protect them, but the Celsus Library nowadays, the facade, Temple of Hadrian, they're all without roof, and that makes it extremely difficult to protect them. And this means the next point is maintenance. Now we really started to have a maintenance, that we have a group of workmen and specialists who are always in Ephesus and take care of the monuments. And now that, for instance, the Temple of Hadrian is now restored, and from now on, every year it will be checked. And if there is a small crack, we can fill it up, and not 50 years later when the crack is like this, and you have to remove the temple. So this, and I always try to talk to my colleagues, if they do a quick analysis, please be aware of the fact what can happen after 50 or 100 years. And then the last thing is the special case, Terrace House 2. We invented there a workshop area for restoration to show our work to the public. And so the tourists now, they are able to watch the restorers in Terrace House 2, and this is quite a successful project. Just to look what we mean with conservation is just really the basic, the safeguarding of the original structure. This is before the Church of St. Mary, before conservation and after conservation. Nothing was added, it's really just the conservation. Or what we also do is site presentation. Because of the erosion, all these streets, they were nearly completely covered with erosion materials. You see it in the upper row, the marble street completely eroded, and now we invented a system. We clean the streets and we put dry walls on both sides of Marble Street, just on one side, to protect the erosion. These are natural stones. Stones come from Ephesus, from our excavation. The dry walls are done by our workmen. This is a typical winter time work. And so this is traditional handicraft as well here in Ephesus. Yeah, and last but not least, we try to publish everything. I have to admit that this was a mistake in the past, that only a few things got published in Turkish, and I think I have to apologize for this policy, but we changed this policy. I think I invested a lot in that, and so now we try to publish a lot of things in 3 languages, is German, English and Turkish, if the things are of public interest, if the thing are just scientific interest, so that it's very detailed publications, the specialist can publish in her own language. You know, so if it's a Turkish colleague in Turkish, it's English, like they say in English, or we do it in German as well. Yeah, and now I want to come back to the local importance of our excavation. I already mentioned the workmen who are working here, that we have full-time employment for 4 persons in Selçuk for the administration. We employ all local archaeologists. This means if we get a lot of applications for students and archaeologists, and it's not, we cannot take all of them, but if the application comes from Selçuk, we take it. This is our policy, because we want to have the Selçuk students and the Selçuk archaeologists involved in Ephesus. This year there were 8 of them. And we have internships, and we have really, especially in Turkey, with different universities and different disciplines, architecture and restoration and archaeology. And we also have a very intensive collaboration with Dokuz Eylül University, who does a research project in Ephesus. They have their own research project there. And we buy a lot of things in Selçuk, and so once I just wanted to show you per month, we use 160 kilo of tomatoes and 80 liter of olive oil and 100 kilo of meat, so this everything per month. We have 70 beds in the excavation house, and we try to buy everything in Selçuk also, and we use, you know, the local handicraft, you know, like the carpenter, the electrician, so everything comes from Selçuk. We don't buy it from companies somewhere else, because we want to invest into the region. And I didn't mention, but we should not forget all the restaurants and bars and ice cream sellers who I think earn a lot of money by our students and archaeologists. At the end, I just want to focus on one project which is perhaps interesting for you, because it was highly debated and discussed in the media. This is the so-called harbor project. Because there was the idea of opening the ancient channel, you know, to get tourists from Bamçak to Ephesus, which means about 7 kilometers. We did a lot of research on the channel. We did paleogeographical drillings, that's shown on the upper scale. We did the survey, and we found out that along the harbor channel on both sides there was a necropolis. It's full of graves on both sides, so you can just dig out the channel and put the earth on both sides, because there are graves. We found Roman villa, we found additional harbors, and this is the necropolis, which we have detected by this research along the harbor. And in the end, it came out that it's nearly impossible to open the channel, not only from an archaeological point of view. I think we all agree that this is would have been a very difficult job, because a lot of shipwrecks are expected there. But hydrogeologists found out that the groundwater level would raise for 3 to 5 meters, and the whole harbor area, Church of St. Mary, Arkadiani, would flood it if we open the channel. So I think this is an argument, an extremely good argument against the opening. I think I'm just, in the end, perhaps the last sentences of, concerning our research project in the medieval settlement. for me it is very important that Ephesus is not only a Greek and Roman site, it's a site which was inhabited from the 7th millennium, the Neolithic period, up to the 17th perhaps century, the Ottoman period, and it is a region which is quite diverse. We have cultural diversity, but we also have a homogeneity, and I think Ephesus is a good example for the situation of Izmir nowadays. It's a melting pot, it's a cultural melting pot. Different cultures live together, and it was a very, very important city in terms of economy. And so this is the end of my lecture, and I would be happy to answer your questions now.
Evet, Sabine Hanım'a bu tabii 120 yıllık bir geleneği olan bir kazı çalışmasının patronajlığını yapıyor ve bizler arkeologlar olarak veya ilişkili tüm bu uzmanlık alanlarında tarihi eserlerin korunmasında karşılaştığımız sorunları bize çok açık bir dille anlattı. Özellikle Efes örneğinde bunu çok iyi görebiliyoruz. Sanıyorum bir de Efes'teki kazıların felsefesiyle ilgili de notlar verdi bize. Bu dakikadan itibaren şimdi soru cevap yapabiliriz diye düşünüyorum. Bu anlamda ilk kim ne sormak ister acaba? Buyurun.
Perhaps both languages.
Evet, wir bedanken bei Ihnen, weil Sie in den letzten 100 Jahren, 130 Jahren für diese antike Stadt Ephesus viel Mühe gegeben haben. Meine erste Frage. Seit 130 Jahren arbeiten Sie in dieser antiken Stadt Ephesus. Bis jetzt, wie viel Prozent der Stadt Ephesus ausgegraben? Das wird uns mehr nachgefragt. Haben Sie verstanden?
Ja, wollen Sie nochmal auf Türkisch sagen? Wollen Sie vielleicht wiederholen die Frage?
Şimdiye kadar çalışmalar sonucunda yüzde kaçı, şehrin yüzde kaçı kazıldı, ortaya çıktı?
So it's an estimation that 15 to 17% of the whole city area has been excavated, but you have to take into account that this is a very long history, and we don't excavate in in the field. We excavate down. This is not one phase. It's different phases. So I think the question can be answered, and a lot of people will be surprised. They say, oh, just 120 years, 20% of the city center. But you have to take into account that we go deep up to 7 meters to 10 meters. So it takes time to excavate one part from the Ottoman period to the Neolithic.
Sorry. Thank you for your lecture. While talking about, you told us that education and teaching, and you had an education for guides. How many times a year to do this?
Usually we had 1 or 2 times a year. This year we decided to do 2 days in November. Not during the season, because my friends, the guides, they said that they are very busy. You know, and it's better to do it not in the summertime, but in November. And I think they will organize it in Kushadase for 2 days. And we spent 2 days together. And, yeah.
As we are guides, we want to know the date.
Yeah, it's organized by Kuret, so you have to ask Kuret. I just get the information, please come, and then I come.
Thank you.
Thanks for the lecture first. And I would like to ask about something about the Hadrian Temple that we have been mentioning, which has just been restored. Are we still calling it a Hadrian Temple, or because in previous excavation reports we just see that it was not Hadrian Temple, or maybe it was dedicated to Artemis. Are we still calling it as Hadrian Temple?
Thank you for the question. Yes. If you want to be very, very correct, you can call him the Temple for Hadrian. And then you can call the other temple the Temple of Hadrian.
Okay, so when we see in the current street, I mean in the middle of the city, Hadrian, the temple
it was dedicated, this temple, or this Naiskos is a very small temple, was dedicated to Hadrian. So there is the inscription. It's dedicated to Hadrian, the Artemis, and the people of Ephesus.